Boy, are we honored and blessed to have one of our favorite guests return to share some exciting news, celebratory news about his career, his life, his passions, his love of life, and all the amazing things that are happening. You've seen him on your screen, on television. He's been in film, on stage for years. He's an epic, award-winning, multi-award-winning actor, singer, dancer, writer, producer, humanitarian. OBBA BABATUNDE is here on the show, and he's back to tell us about some very cool things happening. And we are so honored to have you here, Oba. Always a pleasure. I remember the epic conversation we had last time, and I really appreciate you were telling me before we went on air that you're a fan of our show and of the work, and that really honors me greatly. And I'm so honored to have you back with us on the Jim Masters Show.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. It's a joy to be back. A joy unspeakable. I was saying before we went on air how wonderful it is that you are and how generous you are, and that each of us that get an opportunity to sit and speak with you, it really is a great joy and a pleasure. We know we do a lot of these things, and they aren't always the same kind of love and joy that we have with you. And so we wanted to tip our hat to you. And I, in television years ago, they would say that if you got a review or a letter from one individual, it was the thought and idea of over 1,000 people. So please identify these words that I speak to you in compliment to you represents many people who would want to say this and maybe didn't have the opportunity.
Beautifully said. I really appreciate that. And right back at you. One of the things I was telling Oba before we went on the air, he reminds me of Sammy Davis Jr. in terms of he has this keen and innate and natural ability to truly tap into every aspect of being an entertainer or a performer, but also into all of our lives through the various avenues, but also and the platforms, but also every aspect of who he is as a person, whether acting, singing, dancing, writing, producing. He touches on every aspect in every way that he can deliver himself to us, which I think is very, very impeccable, very special and unique. And Sammy Davis Jr., of course, had that ability as well, as do you, Oba. You really express yourself to us and the love of life in every way that you can possibly do it, which I think is quite amazing. When did that inspiration to do that, to want to be out there, to want to make us smile and think and laugh and cry and feel in the way that we do through your body of work, when did you realize that was something you wanted to do, something you needed to do?
That's a great question. And I'll do my best to give it the answer that it deserves. I have a saying. Well, I have a lot of sayings, but one of them is that your do is not necessarily your who, meaning that what you do affects change in your life, but your who is how you affect change in someone else's life. And that's my who, and I don't take any credit for that. That's what I strive to do in life, is to be able to make and affect change, positive change in someone else's life, whether it's through my art, whether it's through my conversations, whether it's through whatever the relationship that I have with someone, is to try to, I always tell everybody on the set, I always show up to give. I don't show up to get. I show up to give, because you get by giving. That's a lesson that I learned. The early maturational days of that had to be something which I think was innate in the environment, in the family that I grew up in. My mother would always say, she says, if no one has to give you anything, so if someone should offer or give something to you, it's a gift. And it doesn't matter the monetary value of it. It's a gift, and a gift is valuable. And so I guess I ingested that, took that on, and it's carried me through my life. And I still live like that every single day.
Music came first for you, right? You had an opportunity to tap into the musical world, and you're a brilliant performer in that regard. Tell us about how music touched your life early on, Oba.
Yes. Well, People don't realize it, but I started out in the industry. My first professional job was as a musician. I was a wannabe, and I put that in quotes, I was a wannabe jazz trumpet player. My next door neighbor, his dad used to play jazz music on the weekends, on Saturdays, and I would hear it coming, through the walls, and so I would be over there practicing. And one day, Mr. Eddie, was my friend's dad's name, he said, "Hey, boy, I hear you over there practicing that trumpet." He says, "What kind of music do you like?" I said, "I like jazz, sir." He said, "Oh, really?" He says, "So tell me, who's your favorite trumpet player?" And I said, "Oh," because I liked high notes. I said, "Oh, I like Maynard Ferguson." He looked at me, he said, "You don't know nothing about no jazz, boy." So he said, "This weekend, there's a Jazzmobile is going to be coming through the neighborhood." Now, for those of you who may not be aware of what the Jazzmobile was, it was an amazing thing. It was a flatbed truck, and they affixed a drum set, a piano, and other instruments that were affixed so that they would go into the different neighborhoods, and they would set up and they would play like a 20-minute set, okay? And then they would move on to the next area in the neighborhoods. Well, he said, so the Jazzmobile is coming through the neighborhood. You check them out this weekend, and you'll hear some jazz. So I go. Sure enough, the flatbed truck pulls up, and on piano was some of the greatest to ever have done it. McCoy Tyner was on piano. Elvin Jones was on drums. Ron Carter was on bass. And Milt Jackson, nicknamed Bags, was on vibes. I'm standing there and I'm hearing this music, and Jim, my whole perception of what I wanted to do as a musician changed at that time. I ran home, man. I got my bicycle, and wherever that truck went, I would follow them. Now, that was sort of the introduction to the jazz aspect. We mentioned the great Mr. D, as I affectionately refer to him, Sammy Davis Jr. And on my little black and white TV, that was the image that I saw that somehow favored me in terms of the hue, in terms of my desire to be in entertainment. And he was doing it, and he did everything. He played every instrument. He acted, he sang, he danced up a storm, and he did it in the company of everybody that was considered at that time to be the best in the business. And so I patterned my style of entertainment after that. But that introduction to the original part of your question, to music aspect, was this little kid with his trumpet seeing those guys. Oh, and listen to this. Years later, right, I am in college and I'm doing Threepenny Opera. And it was on this little theater that actually it was a jazz club, and it was on 52nd Street in Manhattan. And I think the name of it was like Red Carpet or something like that. And from 8 to 11, it was a theater where small productions would perform. And then from like 11:30 to 3 in the morning, it was a jazz club. And this one night after the show, I said, "Hey, man, I hear they got some jazz upstairs. I want to stay hang around and check it out." I'm sitting there, and Jim, talk about your childhood coming back to you. I'm sitting there, and who comes out on the bandstand but McCoy Tyner on piano, Ron Carter on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. My whole childhood flashed back before me, and I was like, "Oh my God, you guys are the reason." And I sat there that night. I had the most thrilling time. And so that was really a great, great, great experience. Funny how things come back, right?
It really is. What a great story to share. Going back to Sammy Davis Jr. a little bit, did Sammy ever get to know what you felt about him? Did you ever get a chance to express that or talk with him? Was he ever aware of your honoring him in the way that you have and continue to?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, wow. That's so great.
1978, I met Sammy because I was co-starring in a world tour with Liza Minnelli.
Yes.
And we either preceded or followed one another into the different venues around the world. Well, we were starting our tour in Lake Tahoe at Harrah's, and it was our closing night, and Mr. D was going to be opening the next night. He came by to visit to say hi to Liza in the dressing room. She, knowing that I was a big fan, she knocked on the door and said, "Oh, come on, Sammy wants to meet you." I walk in, and well, actually, I said, Could he meet me after he's seen me work?" She said, "Well, he's not going to stay for the show. His gums are bothering him, so he's going to go and rest. But he would love to meet you." So I go into her dressing room, and he was getting something. I'll never forget. It was like I remember like it was yesterday. He was getting something out of the little fridge, and I said, "How do you do, Mr. Davis?" And he turned around and he said, "Sam, man, call me Sam." And I could never call him Sam. And he says, "Liza says you're marvelous, and I'll get an opportunity to see you while we're touring, but have a great show tonight. I'm going to go rest. My gums are bothering me, and our first obligation is always to our audience. So I'll see you as we tour." Well, as it turned out, I'm on stage, and when I came off our costume change, Liza's dresser, Helen, said, "Liza said to tell you Sammy stayed." So, but I was going to do my show regardless. After Jim, the show was over, I hear in the hallway, "Wonderful, darling. Where's Oba's dressing room?" There's a knock on my door. I said, "Yes." He says, "It's Sam, man." And I opened the door, and there he stood. And he looked at me and he said, "You, my man, are a bitch on wheels. A bitch on wheels." He came in, paid me a lot of nice compliments. And I said to him, "Mr. D, sir, I want to thank you for coming in through the kitchen so I could come in through the front door." And tear rolled down his face. He gave me a big hug. And he said, "Thank you for that." And I said, "I'm sure you've heard it." He said, "I could never hear it enough." And we became very close from that moment on until right through to his passing in 1990. And do you know what, Jim? Had he been on the planet this year, he would be 100. This would be his centennial. He was born in 1925. And so we got to spend a lot of time together, and he knew how much I loved him. And I had the opportunity to do a musical called Sammy, where I portrayed him at the Old Globe Theater. Got nicely awarded for doing that, reward, I like to call it. And it was great because a lot of the luminaries came on opening night. Nancy Sinatra, Tina Sinatra, Quincy Jones, they all came to that opening night. And, just have those people sit and say, and Quincy said to me, he said, "Hey, man, you need to cut that out, man." I said, "What's that, Mr. Q?" He said, "I knew Sammy, and I know Sammy is dead, and I know you. And I kept looking up on that stage. This is not on a film. This is on stage. And I kept looking up there expecting to see you, and I only saw Sammy." He said, "You need to cut that out, man. You're scaring people."
Right. You're so good at it. Exactly. You do morph into him in a beautiful way. It's very, very convincing. It's amazing. I want to let the audience know too. As I mentioned at the beginning, this gentleman has been a part of our lives in many ways, shapes, and forms as an actor, singer, dancer, director, writer, producer for over 4 decades. And his unique breed in today's industry really is, as everybody describes him, a triple threat. He's comfortable also in the expression of various musical instruments and all forms of dance, in addition to his award-winning performances on stage and screen. He's also an internationally renowned speaker and master class teacher for adult and young audiences alike. And he won a Daytime Emmy Award for his role on CBS's Bold and the Beautiful. And of course, he was Emmy nominated for the HBO movie Miss Evers' Boys, and Tony Award nomination as role as C.C. White at the original Broadway cast of Dreamgirls, Best Actor Award for the musical Sammy, as he's talking about, for the San Diego Critics Circle Award, his NAACP Image Award, Best Actor for his role as Sarge in A Soldier's Play, NAACP Trailblazer Award win, and NAACP Image Award nominated performance in the HBO movie Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, multiple Ovation Award nominations, 2020 Icon Award, 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. It's incredible. He's appeared in more than 17 stage productions, several on Broadway, 33 films, 60 plus television series, made for television movies, and so much more. And he can be seen, and this is very exciting, of course, because it's been a wonderful relationship, in the 4 primetime series, including CBS's SWAT, Hulu's Little Fires Everywhere, Netflix, Dear White People, Amazon Prime's Goliath, and so much more. I thought I was busy, but you are one busy guy. And I know you love all of it. What was it like when you heard your name called and you got that Emmy win?
You know, that was a special, special moment, obviously, you know, because it represented so much, because my character on that soap was the dad of a family whose name was Charles Avon. And he's the dad of a family who is in peril. One of my children had transitioned into from a male to a female transgender, and he didn't know in his own experience how to deal with that child. And the reason I tell you about that, Jem, is that I had an opportunity to meet a person, a wonderful human being, who said to me, you know, Mr. Babatunde, I transitioned, and my relationship with my father was very, very strained. He said, but by the way you portrayed that character, I was able to understand and see what my decision that I made, how it affected him and other aspects of that family that I wasn't able to see prior to being able to identify. The earnestness and the truth and the struggle that your character showed got me to be able to potentially identify what my choices had done with my family. And I was able to go back, and now my father and I have a great relationship. So look at the power that is the potential power of the industry. If we play fully realized human beings, which is the only thing that I'm interested in portraying in my craft as an actor, to be able to then bring a family together through the earnestness of the character that I portrayed in that. So receiving the honor for that night and standing on that stage and accepting it, there I am there. You know, it was a great, 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 wonderful experience, one that I will never forget, and that I greatly appreciate the Bell family, you know, being able to give me the opportunity to portray that character in Bold and the Beautiful.
And you portrayed it beautifully, so convincingly, and that is a true test for an actor. And, you know, we've had folks who are actors, actresses who've come through as well, who've been on soaps or currently on soaps. And one of the things, the theme that seems to exist is they say, if you can make it and survive the rigors of being on a soap opera with dialogue this thick and all the scenes, and the fact that the series is on 5 days a week, not once a week or once a month. It's not a film where it's just the one time, but it's a constant thing. If you can survive that, it is incredible training ground, isn't it? Being on a daytime drama.
Absolutely. You described it perfectly. And each one of those great actors, and those that have certainly that have been there and stood the test of time, you know, my hat's off to them. You know, I had a great relationship, and we still, you know, we're family, and you know, so that's an amazing thing, and getting to work with them, and then some of the younger actors, like Rome Flynn, who is gone on to do other amazing things, and he's still just continuing to grow, and he's so kind because he has spoken publicly and said that, you know, it was the relationship that I was able to sort of give him some insight into, as he said, you know, how to navigate the ropes of the industry. And he gives me credit for that, and that to see him continue to grow. And then the other individuals who were on, you know, on the show, it's just a special situation. You spend a lot of time together, and like you said, there's a lot of dialogue, baby, and you know, soaps are quick. You know, there's no cut retake. No, you got to be on top of it because you got to get it done in the amount of time. So I salute those actors and actresses.
In addition to, of course, the many moments and incredible moments on The Bold and the Beautiful, you've had opportunities to be a part of some really groundbreaking material. Also, one of the greats that we saw it in the movie theater when it came out. It's still talked about and referred to today, and that's Philadelphia.
Yes.
Just an extraordinary, groundbreaking movie, Tom Hanks and company. How did this come about, and what was it like being a part of such a pivotal, moving, but very important film as Philadelphia?
You know, you're absolutely correct. Philadelphia was absolutely a moving and powerful experience on every level. How it came about was the great Jonathan Demme, the director. I had an opportunity while I was doing Dreamgirls. I got a phone call. Said Jonathan Demme wanted to meet me, and I was like, "Really?" So I went to his office, and he said, "Hey, sit down, man." And I sat in his chair, and boom, I almost fell out. And he says, "Oh, yeah, that wheel is a little quirky on that chair." Now, the reason I say that is that here's the great Jonathan Demme, and he was so humble that he had this little tiny office. It was really about not the ambience, the great John. It was about the person, the human being. And he said to me, he says, "Listen, I've got a movie that I'm directing, and there's a role in it, and I think you'd be perfect for it." So the name of the character is the Face of Justice. And this was with Dean Stockwell and I mean, just a host of amazing actors. And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to do it. That began my relationship with him. And then that led to the original Silence of the Lambs. That led to the opportunity in Philadelphia, where I got to work with, you know, Tom Hanks. And I'll tell you how that then spawned into something else. But Tom, and then Jason Robards and Denzel Washington. I mean, a host of just brilliant talent. Antonio Banderas, just amazing in a piece that was so pivotal and gave an opportunity for people to identify people not based on their challenge, but on their humanity. And so I'm honored and pleasured and pleased to have been a part of that. And there's Mary Steenburgen and myself, you know, playing the lawyers opposing Denzel and Tom, you know. But it was a great thing, and I had such a wonderful time working with her as well.
Really incredible. If anybody has not seen it, make sure you see it, rent it, download it, whatever. It's really, really something very, very special. And the topic is special, all of it. You mentioned Dreamgirls too, and having an opportunity to be a part of that. What was that like as well, Oba?
Well, let me tell you, one of my crowning glories. I was involved along with those one of that you just showed on the screen as part of the workshop that built. So there you have Ben Harney, and you have Shirley Ralph and Clevant Derricks and Loretta Devine, and of course the great Jennifer Holliday. And we started this production in a workshop. It was the writer and Tom Ian, great Tom Ian. We started this as a workshop. It was called Tom Ian's Project Number 9 before it was Dreamgirls, and it morphed into this wonderful production that I truly wholeheartedly believe stood and stands the test of time of being one of the most unbelievable productions to ever be done on Broadway. The great Michael Bennett directed it. Henry Krieger was the composer. We had arrangers like the great Harold Wheeler, and each of us are still connected. I just saw Loretta just the other night at a screening of a film, and it's really, you want to talk about family, that's a great family. Michael Peters also is the choreographer. It just every bit of that evolving this piece. And what a lot of people don't realize is about Dreamgirls is that each of those characters are compilation characters, meaning that they are examples of many true life people that lived, because Dreamgirls is really about what was going on at the time, with music in the industry as it pertained to Black performers. And it really is like, for example, everybody says, oh, well, James Thunder Early is James Brown. Well, if you listen carefully, and as you go back, and I'm referring to the Broadway show, the musical, certainly. I can speak empirically about that because of my contribution and being there from the beginning. But if you go back and you listen, for example, when James Thunder Early says, fake your way to the top. Ow! Well, yes, that's a reflection of James Brown. But when you listen to him when he says, I want you, baby, I want you, and I need you, baby. That's Otis, a tribute to Otis Redding. Sitting on the dock of the bay. See, so you got to go back and check out and listen. These were tributes to all these characters were compilations of actual people who actually lived and what their lives were like during that period of time in the music industry. So I was so thrilled to be a part of that and to be honored and receive a Tony nomination for my portrayal and creation of CCY.
Absolutely spectacular, my friend. Really, truly. Like I said, you've touched so many aspects of this business and have soaked it all up in such an incredible way. Television, film, stage, all of it. Something else too, I did mention that was, I know, very near and dear to your heart. And your performance in it, absolutely spectacular. Miss Evers Boys. Tell us about how this came about.
Oh, wow. That is, again, one of the most moving opportunities that I've had. You see, I've truly been blessed, as you can see, with having been involved in things that really have made a difference in the way projects and the way, people live. Miss Evers Boys. Such a magical journey. It was originally written as a play, and there were two young gentlemen, Kip and Kern Conweiser. They are producers to this day, and I had my hats off to them and a man named Bob Benedetti, who were really instrumental in making sure that this came about. They presented it to HBO, and they had gone to Lawrence Fishburne to direct it. And he said, no, you know what? I think we should get Joe Sargent as a director because he has a knack at being able to do this. And then let's surround it with a great cast. And that's what we got. We got the late, great Ozzie Davis. You know, we got Craig Sheffer. We got the brilliant and talented and amazing Alfre Woodard, you know, and just a host of great Joe Morton. You know, we got a cast that was really committed to telling the story. And as I say that how great the potential of great art is that as a result of seeing this production, the president at the time, Bill Clinton, came out and offered a formal apology from the country for the egregious wrongs that were done for this Tuskegee experiment, where black men were, it was called the study of what happens with untreated syphilis in the African-American male. This actually went on. This is not antiquated. And it went on for many years. And we were able to pay tribute and bring to the fore exactly what went on in our great country. We don't always get it right, but that formal apology was certainly appreciated and merited. So I was just honored to be a part of it, and that was my first primetime Emmy nomination.
Congratulations, and what a story to be a part of, and so told so real and authentically and convincingly. And if nobody has seen that or you haven't, check that out as well. So many incredible things. I mentioned introducing Dorothy Dandridge and so much more.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another great one, huh?
Yes, with the great Halle Berry, you know,
Yes.
and getting an opportunity to portray one of the men who was the greatest to ever put on a pair of tap shoes was the Nicholas brothers. And I played Harold Nicholas. I portrayed Harold Nicholas in that production. And because Dorothy Dandridge and Harold Nicholas were married. And so to be able to tell that story and to work with the wonderful and delightful Halle Berry as she was also producing, it was her producing debut. So we got a chance to spend some wonderful time together and tell the story that many people just didn't know.
And in such a loving way that you did, Oba. So many stories that you've shared and been a part of. Do you ever, when you look back at it, all these movies, all these television shows, it's really a whirlwind, huh?
Yes, it is a whirlwind, you know, and I love that, you know, that you've given me the opportunity to revisit those experiences and to talk about them. And each has their own story. You know, I mentioned previously that, you know, the relationship with Tom Hanks that was built during Philadelphia also matured into an opportunity where Tom called me up, and in his directorial debut in the movie That Thing You Do, he said to me, he said, "Oh, but listen, man, I got this character that reminds me of someone in my childhood in an apartment building that my family lived in, and he was the doorman. And I think you could bring that character to life." And I did my very best, and we had a wonderful time, and I cherished that experience, getting to work with Liv, you know, and just a host of great artists.
You're a Queens, New York kid, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. That's where I sort of
got your feet wet.
Yes, yes.
What about growing up in New York with all the food and the culture and the entertainment and just the richness of the city? I'm from New York, also further out east on Long Island. My dad also grew up in Queens in Astoria, a couple blocks from
Yes.
Tony Bennett growing up. There is a richness of the culture and exposure to a lot of art and ideas and people.
Yes.
How did growing up in that environment enhance your ability to share your stories, to relate to people, to have this vim and vigor that you have, having originally come from such a vibrant place?
Well, you describe it perfectly. And at that time, it was a true melting pot, and you mentioned the food, you mentioned the maturation and marination of the different cultures that came together, because it was someone from every part of the world was right there in New York City, man. And it was always a special treat when those cultures came together, and we shared our experiences. It was, growing up as a kid, I would go to camp. And we would experience nature together, and so that even built its own special connection and energy. And that word that you use, energy, there was a vibrance in New York, man, that I just didn't find anywhere else in the world. It was just an explosion when this all came together. And that it only made sense that when I went to Brooklyn College, and again, you brought that culture, and then going back and introducing myself to being able to work on Broadway and the small theaters in New York. Really, amalgamation of the cultures coming together. And I also think that, to your point, that's one of the things that my life is a tapestry, of all those things. It's a combination of all of the people that I've met along the way and their stories that I get a chance to tell in an honest way.
Including the Temptations. How cool is that, huh? The beloved Temptations. Tell us about this.
Oh, the Temptations movie. Wow. Want to talk about talent? Now,
Yeah.
of course, I got an opportunity to portray the great Mr. Berry Gordy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is a little anecdote. It's so funny because there are people, and I think this is a credit to, I guess, I say that humbly, to the fact of I morph into the characters, as you mentioned earlier with Mr. D. There are people that run into me and think I am Berry Gordy because I portrayed him. And
So
I
did they
said
hand you their
to
audition
one,
reels
I
and
was
their audition tapes?
yes, I was in Toronto once, and a guy, I'm walking down the street, and the guy goes, "Oh my God, it's Berry Gordy." I said, No, 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 no. I played him in the movie. He says, "No, man, I know you're trying to keep a low profile, but listen, Mr. Gordy, I have a disc. I want you to hear it. Please, just give it some attention." The guy ran to his car and chased me down the street and gave me a CD of his. I said, "All right, I'll listen to it." But here it was, and I'm getting an opportunity to play this iconic human being. And so now, whenever we have had the pleasure of running into one another, he'll say, "Oh my God, it's Berry Gordy." And we have a good laugh.
That's
But
incredible.
I can't let it go without saying that the gentlemen who played the Temptations, I have to tip my hat to them, because those were their singing voices. That was not pre-recorded. That was them singing. So I always, every time I get the opportunity, to salute them. And each one of them were fine actors and fine talents. And we had a great time on that movie. And if you haven't watched it recently, go back and check it out. You'll really, really, I believe, will enjoy it. It's a wonderful production.
It really is. I encourage people as well to check that out. Everything that Oprah's been a part of, like Mississippi Scholar, he was on One Life to Live, All My Children, God Bless the Child, the TV series Matlock, CBS Summer Playhouse, Married to the Mob, A Different World. Remember that series, of course, on NBC, Miami Blues. You mentioned The Silence of the Lambs, Dead Again, The Importance of Being Earnest, The Human Factor, Tales from the Crypt. This is just a few, folks. Sisters, Undercover Blues, as well as, of course, Philadelphia, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., and Getting By, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Thunder in Paradise, Tom, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Touched by an Angel on CBS, of course, Roma Downey and Company, Della Reese, Under One Roof, Born to Be Wild, Sliders, The Net, Fatal Pursuit, Soul of the Game, A Reason to Believe, Multiplicity, Carpool. You got a whole binge weekend, folks, to dig into the archives of OBBA, The Tomorrow Man, The Cherokee Kid. He was on Friends, of course, on an episode of that. And The Burning Zone, we mentioned Miss Evers' Boys, Sparks, Spy Game, Life, as well as The Apartment Complex, Dawson's Creek, The Outer Limits, The Visit, The Invisible Man, just a few of them, folks. Really incredible. Soulful, as well as Max Steel, How High, Star Wars, Rogue Squadron Second, Rogue Leader, NYPD Blue. That was another great series on CBS. He was on that as well. The Notebook.
Yes.
The Notebook, just
Oh.
people, The Young and the Restless, and Boston Legal with William Shatner and Company, and Girlfriends, and Saving Grace, and NCIS, and Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds. I mean, if there's ever been a show, he's been on it. Truly, it's incredible. The Last Fall, and even Santa's Paws 2, the Santa Pups. Are We There Yet? The Dead Sea. It's just extraordinary. And, you really got to dig into his repertoire. Goliath, The Millennial, All the Men in My Life, Forget About It, 45 Seconds, Wrong Place, Wrong Time, which is new. And also Noble Intentions, SWAT. Now, there's something special about SWAT and why I'm mentioning SWAT, everybody, and that's because he's been a part of it for a long time, and he's developed a wonderful friendship like father and son with, Shamar Moore, who's a phenomenal actor, and of course, they were together on soaps, but this incredible relationship that you have with each other really stands the test of time. And I know you're celebrating, the opportunity to relish in all the years together. And there's a very special episode that's coming up that you're very excited about.
Yes.
What is it like working with him and just everybody and being part of such a iconic franchise as SWAT, which people can see, of course, on CBS?
Yes. Well, you framed it beautifully. Thank you so much, Jim. The relationship that Shamar and I have extends itself beyond the on-screen relationship. Sometimes you get a chance to work, we've worked together for 7 seasons. And sometimes you get an opportunity to work with someone when it's an extended period of time. And you find a connection that's special. And, I kind of think it's sort of like, I'm a surrogate dad in a certain kind of way, meaning that we share with each other, things about our personal lives, and we've connected on that very special level. And so the beauty of that is that then it translates when we're on camera together, and he just celebrated his birthday last weekend, and we had a great party, and everybody was there, and the rest of the crew and the cast, and it was just wonderful to see him so exuberantly happy to be around his friends and those of us that have all become family. And there you see that picture there. I'm laughing. That's in between setups, and he probably said something that cracked me up, and that's the kind of energy that we have, and as well as the fact that, my character on the show has gone through a lot of different changes, and and so we have some very powerful and deep scenes. And I think that one of the great things about the show is that, men and women in uniform, very often they get only viewed as what the job is. Then it's not understood that they're human beings and they've got a life outside of wearing that uniform. And by bringing my character in, I think that that is something that we've been able to show to the world population, that there is also the human side of these men and women, whether it's military or whether it's law enforcement or whether it's first responders. There's a human being inside that uniform, and we salute and tip our hat to them in the production of SWAT. They've done that very well, and I'm honored to have been a part of that production for the last 7 seasons of the 8 seasons that the show has been on, and really have honed and celebrated the relationship that I have with Shamar. I'm really thrilled and pleased that we've got a chance to grow together in that show.
Talented actors. There's nothing more beautiful when you are working in a fast-paced, high-pressure, let's get it done, let's take another take, all the elements of being on set, and everything has to be just right. And sometimes people just come in, they do their thing, and they're out. But when you develop a warmth, a love for one another, a real respect, yes, and a professional as well as personal friendship and adoration, it really is something that transcends and goes beyond. And it also enhances the performances because it's real and you can see it when you watch SWAT and you see you and Shamar together. You really do think that you are related. And that's because you're taking elements of this respect and this professional relationship and personal friendship, and it's weaved into the characters. And I think it's a masterful way that you both do it, a truthful way that you do it. But that's a blessing when that happens, and oftentimes rare in this industry, right?
Absolutely. And you have framed it perfectly. Couldn't have been said it better. And that is really, as you said, it's unique and it's wonderful. And I cherish it. I really do. I sincerely do.
What are other things? I mean, we might need another couple of hours just to have this answered, but what are other things that you're excited about that you are working on and that are coming up? I mean, I'm sure that your Rolodex is like,
it is truly,
Mama would be proud. Mama would be proud.
She certainly would be. She certainly would be. Well, I keep going. I'm an artist, and I think that my purpose on the planet is to, in some way, whether it be singing, acting, dancing, producing, writing, directing, it's been it continues to be something that I'm able to do, fortunately, and also to share with others. You mentioned earlier about the speaking and the master class. From time to time, I give a master class in where I'm able to share through my experience of growing in this industry. I'm able to show exactly some tips that maybe they didn't get in school, that they didn't get in their studies. And they always are like, if the class is set up for like 3 hours, 4.5, 5 hours, I can't get them out. They're like, no, we're getting so much. We got to stay. The same thing that you mentioned earlier with the speaking engagements, and so I am about to embark. A gentleman I met named Robert Hall has written a book called Badge Unbroken. And It's a wonderful story, and it's about, we're talking about men and women in uniform, and he was a police chief and an officer before that, and his maturational journey in Tupelo, Mississippi, and how he's come up through there. And I'm going to do the book on tape for him. I'm going to be able to be my voice that you'll hear reading the book, and he asked me to do that, and I was honored to do that. Which came from me being shooting a film in Tupelo, Mississippi, that you mentioned earlier, and it's one thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next, and so yes, I'm not slowing down, Jim. I'm still plowing forward and continuing to do what it is that I love to do, and that is to give to the world population. Because the images that I have that have the ability to present on the small screen, large screen, or even on stage, is something that goes out and suggests to someone that they too can find a moment of joy if they can find what they love, what is their passion, and identifying that passion and living through that passion.
And you have done it and continue to do it in such a way. I mentioned, we were talking before we went on air, that the body of work is very inspiring for others who are looking at an OBBA and saying, my God, look at this guy. He's been doing this for decades. He's everywhere. He's so good at it. Everybody loves him. He's very affable. He's friendly. He's a great conversationalist. He's a terrific entertainer. And where does that come from? Where does that spark? And how does one maintain it? What I think is exciting about you, which I mentioned earlier too, was you have the same fervor and excitement and wide-eyed curiosity about it all as when you started out. And a lot of times people don't have that. It wanes, things happen, things go off the track, or experiences sort of sour them, turn them away. You've been able to maintain this joyful nature, this passion. Okay, let's bring it on. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. Let's celebrate it. All these years in a very difficult, demanding, fabulous, but crazy, unpredictable industry. And I think that is very inspiring for others watching, saying, okay, when you first come out of the gate, there's the excitement, the glamour,
Yes.
but to maintain this joy and this passion and this curiosity is a real secret that, you share with everybody.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. It's an honor. It really is. And, every time I open my eyes and I'm relatively in my right mind, I have been given by the Creator everything I need to go and get what I want. And what I want to do is I want to, as I mentioned earlier, to give. And, I have just been so fortunate that I'm given the opportunity. But it extends itself not just in the industry of entertainment, but as you mentioned earlier, when I meet people, they will initially, hopefully, or they'll pay me a compliment and recognize me from something that I've done, and then we have a conversation, and they go, "Hey, you know what? I was a fan before, man, of your work, but now I'm a fan of you, the human being." And that continues. If you talk about the secret, it's that continues to fuel me. It continues to inspire me. And I'm able to share, as I said earlier, that I show up to every situation to give, not to get. And by giving, I always get, and I work hard at making sure that I never mistake my presence for the event. I'm there to contribute to the success and the joy of it. And that's how I live my life. That's how I live my life through my career and everything else.
What a beautiful way to say that in such a deep way. Very inspiring, very empowering, very motivational. Is there a book in the offing?
You know, I have a book that people are saying, Oba, we love this book. Put it out in pamphlet form. It's a book that I'm writing, or been writing, I should say, called He Said, She Said. And it has to do with the means by which we can communicate with each other. And very often what he says is not what she hears, and vice versa, right? And so I happened to be on set one time. This is the inspiration for the book. I was on set and I heard a group of ladies and they were talking. One said, "Hey, how's Jane?" And then the other said, "Oh, she's great, dating, nothing serious." And great, I'm glad she's happy. And they went on with the conversation. And so later I walked over and I said, "Excuse me, ladies, I wasn't ear hustling, but I happened to hear you make a comment. And I think you asked her how a friend of somebody that you both knew, how she was doing. I think her name was Jane. And one said she's fine, dating, nothing serious." I said, "Can you explain to me what that means?" "Oh, well, it's that she's seeing somebody, but it's not serious yet." And I said, I got that from what you said, but let me ask it to you this way. Does the person she's seeing know it's not serious yet?" And he was like, well, I said, "Or is it only going to be serious when she tells him or her that they're serious?" And it began to be an interesting conversation. And it gave me this idea for a book. And so now when I talk about it, people are like, "We need that book. We need that book right away." Because it has to do with relationships and how we communicate with one another. You know, I was talking to someone just yesterday about the term that I call the in helping. It's called the passion of communication. And it is in that way, what is it that I can say that you're going to interpret to really understand what it is I'm saying? Because now, you know, particularly now we rely so much on things like, you know, text and emails. And when you receive a text, people don't realize this, Jim. I don't think that when you receive a text or an email, that the person reading it reads it based on what their emotional state is at that time. So I could text you and say, "Hey, Jim, what are you doing?" Now that's how I am intending it. But because it's a text, you might be in the middle of something. You go, "Why is Oba texting me? What am I doing? I'm working. What do you mean? What am I doing?" That's based on your emotional state at that time. So that's why they created emojis to give text and subtext. But I try to do it with the words. So sometimes I will even start out by saying, "Hey, please, when you're reading this, please understand I'm saying this in a loving, soft voice." You know, so that now it's like, okay, he's not yelling at me, or he's not asking me a question that I can't answer, or da 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 da. He's not, you know. So, you know, I also live by the concept that it is the best idea in the room that wins, not necessarily the person with the best idea. And that way, that's what I call the process. It gives the ability for everybody to be able to be a contributor. Okay. And so it's like, you know, words are thoughts and thoughts are things. So be mindful what you say, because you're creating a thought and it turns into a thing. So we should be careful about the things that we say and how we say them to one another.
That's so very true. I tell you, you are a poet. You really are. It's everything just is so important and so real. And this is great sage advice that we could all take in our everyday lives. You are definitely a motivational speaker as much as you are the actor, singer, dancer, writer, producer, director, and all the rest, my friend. You know, your writing, directing, and producing includes a lot of incredible things, right? Like the Lionsgate home entertainment feature film, American Bad Boy. and
Yes.
Oscar's Black Odyssey, and so
Yes.
much more, Voodoo Dolls. Tell us about the involvement, and here you are, the prolific talent, the on camera, the face and voice, but also you are very prolific as a writer, director, producer. Tell us how you value and appreciate doing that work as well.
Yes. Well, as you had mentioned earlier, I act through my dancing, dance through my acting, sing through my writing. It all comes together. I pay attention because I always say it's not how long you've been living, it's how long you've been paying attention. And that's why we got some young, brilliant people and sometimes some old fools. And so when I go into the directing space or the writing space, I want to write characters or stories that actually are born of actual homespun experiences in life. Okay. When I'm directing, I want to then help that actor to be able to bring out that kind of energy of who they're portraying. Because what many people don't understand is that the story is told in between the lines, not with the lines. The lines are an expression of what the thought is, and relative to what happens after you say what you say or before you say what you say can tell as much of a story. You see, people used to ask me, they would say, "Oh, but what do you prefer, stage, film, or stage, television, or film?" And when I was doing majority of theater, I would say, "Oh man, theater," because it's a live audience and everybody's right there and you get it. Then I started doing more television and then more film. And then I realized that I developed a healthy respect for each one of those mediums, because that theater lives and dies in the hearts of those who have an opportunity to experience it at that time. That's special. But also television, I can reach a much wider and broader audience in boom, a flash, than I could ever do in theater. And film is forever. Okay, so when I'm directing, I'm remembering all of those things, and that's what I want to bring up. I want to say, hey, listen, we have an opportunity here. Let's tell the truth of that person's experience. You heard me say I only portray fully realized human beings. When I'm writing, that's what I'm writing. When I'm directing, that's what I'm trying to do, both with the camera and with talking to the actors. Is that, hey, let's take a moment and think about this just before you go. Why do you think that that person is saying what they're saying? Or how did they feel about saying it? And now we begin to develop the dimensions. And when I write, I try to write multi-dimensional, not stick-figured characters, but fully realized human beings. So there you have it.
I like the way you say that, not stick figure characters. I love the expression that you used. I'm not ear hustling. I'm going to use that. You've got these great phrases. You need to write a book of OBBA's phrases because they're
Yes,
terrific.
yes, it's
I,
true. As I said earlier, I say, I say, well, I have a saying, and then I correct myself. I have a lot of sayings, Oba.
tell us
But
that.
Jim, before we go on, I just wanted to
Yeah,
just reference something that I said earlier. And when I
yeah.
said, it's to your point that you just made, when I said that your do is not necessarily your who. And I would like to reference that again, as I said, your do is what affects change in your life, but your who is how you affect change in someone else's life. And I'll call up the name of my friend's mom, Alma Smith. And I always reference this because I think it helps make the point. I guess as a young man, I was having a difficult day, or had a difficult day in school one day. And I came home and I guess my head was hanging down. And Mrs. Smith took her hand, and put it on my chin, lifted up my face, looked into my eyes, and said, "Whatever it is, it's going to be okay because you are special." And for whatever reason, I heard her. And for whatever reason, I believed her. And I sit here speaking to you today and to everyone that's within the sound of our voices, that was a defining moment. But the point that I use to make that is that we all have the ability to be an Alma Smith, a Mrs. Smith in someone's life. You have the ability. No one has to give you permission to be great. You have the ability to maybe stop, pay attention to someone, and maybe tell them in some way that it's going to be all right. And they may hear you. And they too may go on in that defining moment to be able to sit here as OBBA Babatunde sits before you now in reflection of his life and career and say to you, hey, you know what? It was this moment that made a change in my life.
Beautifully said. Wow, so powering. This is we're preaching beautifully on this episode of the Jim Masters Show. I love this. This is fantastic, Oba. Thanks for sharing that story and what it really meant to you and how you've sort of incorporated that into your life and your being of who you are and what you do. Before we went on, folks, over who was with us before, you can see the episode. He was here last, and we told him we would keep the porch light on for him for when he returns. So it's such an honor and pleasure to have him back, and he'll be back again. He said he loved my last name, Masters, which I appreciate. And that's, the real family name. It is James or Jim Masters. Tell us about the derivation of your fabulous name as well. I think it's fantastic. It's not a stage name. You're not really Terry Smith. It is your name. I love it. And tell us about the background.
It's OBBA Babatunde. It's Nigerian in origin. And Babatunde, loosely translated, means the spirit of the grandfather has returned in the child. And what's very fascinating about that is, and I didn't realize it until my firstborn was born, but for the last 5 generations, all the first, my oldest making the 5th, all the firstborn men in my family, we've all been born the same day, the same month. That usually gets 2 responses, like,
wow,
whoa, that's amazing, or whoa, see you later.
I was going to say, and boy, if their last name was Foreman, all of the kids would be named George.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's right. Did anybody ever tell you, you mentioned Sammy Davis Jr. and Berry Gordy, but anybody ever say there is a slight resemblance? You could be a cousin or a brother of Lionel Richie. I see that.
Oh, it's so funny.
Have you heard that before?
I get that so many times, and I told Lionel, I said, Lionel, I could get you in a lot of trouble. He said, oh, but no, please don't do that. I get myself in enough. And there are people that go, and it's because there's a lot of people that know the face, but because it's been seen in so many different, as you've been kind enough to illustrate today, in so many different roles, is that they see the face and then they'll think, well, that's got to be Lionel Richie. You know what I mean? And, they've come up and they go, Mr. Richie. And I go, no, it's not, but he's a friend and I'll give him your best. You know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now he's going to do a rendition of All Night Long for us. You're a delight to chat with, my friend, and I'm so glad you wanted to come back on the show to celebrate, of course, SWAT, but so much else that you've done, continue to do, and the inspiration. And we will definitely look for that book and or pamphlet. I don't think it's going to be a pamphlet. I think it needs to be, it's going to be this. He's got lots to share and lots to say, and always a pleasure. Continue to spread the word about the Jim Masters Show talk show series. We love having you here, Oba, and you really are one of the very special people in our industries here. And I really was very excited when we were putting this together to have you come on, and we will keep the porch light on for you, my friend, and you are welcome back here on our series anytime. And I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you, my friend.
I enjoyed it immensely, as I always do. And Jim, as I said, you have the absolute perfect last name, because you truly are a master at what you do, and the experience that you give to the general populace and to those of us who get an opportunity to sit and chat with you. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I appreciate you more than words can say. Thank you so very much. Continued happiness, success, and I'll see you. Here's another one of my sayings. I'll see you the next time I'm looking at you.
I love that. I love that. And he'll be ear hustling along the way. My father from Astoria had this fabulous line that he gave me when I was 7 years old. And I don't know if I shared it with you, but his New York way, his charisma, Irish, just the whole way, the wit and wisdom. 7 years old, he says to me, and we've talked about it not that long ago. I brought it up again. I said, you remember telling me when I was 7 years old? And again, this is why I plug into the sage advice that you give just in your normal conversation. Everything you say has a powerful meaning to every sentence you share, and just even conversing with you. So I've always been in tune with that, and I plug into it myself, and hopefully I share it as well. Jimmy, now I'm 7 years old. Jimmy, always remember, he's always been Jim, and I'm the fifth James. So Jimmy, at the time of being 7, always remember this. Whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, always make sure that you thank them for those kind words. Always make sure you do that. Then ask them to please put those words in writing and address it management.
I love your dad.
Right?
That's
such
great.
Such a New York line.
But you know what? I'll tell you something. I've done that. I went to a Whole Foods, and I was purchasing something, and the person perhaps was not having the best day, and they weren't very kind. And so I asked, could I please speak to the manager? It was a seafood section. And the manager came out, and she diffused the situation, and she made it good. And I then called 2 days later to speak to the manager of the store. And I shared what had happened and how appreciative I was of how this wonderful woman took charge. And he said, thank you. He says, we generally don't get a lot of calls of praise, but we have a meeting every morning, and we'll be recognizing her for what she did. And it's interesting because that also carries a monetary gift from the company, because we like to make sure that our company is inspired and encouraged to take care of our customers. And so without knowing that, just me wanting to make sure that, as your dad said, that management knew that she had done something special, it also served her. So your dad is on top of it, baby.
On top of it. Just another testament to character, I tell you. And, because of you responding in the seafood section of that supermarket in the way that you did, identifying intuitively that this person wasn't having that great of a day, and it really isn't you or others, it's what's going on in their life at that time, is a gift. And the ability to be able to tweak and sort of rearrange how you would respond was a beautiful thing, because that manager could have come storming out of the door in the seafood section of the supermarket and said, something to the effect to that person, seems like something fishy is going on, clam up.
You see,
right?
Brilliant, Jim.
There we go.
Brilliant,
High five on it. High five on that. High five up. There you go. I felt that.
Yes.
Your hands are warm. You got warm hands.
Oh yes, that's that energy.
That's it. You gotta laugh, right? I always look for
Yes,
a way to
that was
make people laugh,
beautiful.
and you've got to laugh. You've got to laugh.
You set it up perfectly, man, and then drop the hammer. Bam!
Jim Nova going on the road starting next month. Look for us in a theater near
Yeah.
you. You're the best. You be well, and thank you for the generosity of time. I really appreciate it, and you're really amazing. And again, spread the word about our show. We will continue
I
to
certainly will.
wave your flag, my friend, and come see us again. Okay, it was a real pleasure
I
chatting with
will.
you.
Thank you again. I appreciate you greatly.
Right
Continued
back
success and
at you.
happiness.
You
All right,
too,
my brother.
Oba. All right, we'll see you on the screen here, there, and everywhere. Our audience has a lot of binge watching to do with the list
Yes,
that I gave
yes.
them of things to
What's
check
coming up?
out.
Check us out. Big
For,
episode.
that's right, exactly. Yes, and that's a special episode. Tell us about the episode itself before you go.
That's a special episode. Yes. Special for my character, particularly. So you're going to see, they call me Pops on the show. So May 9th, Pops is going to be putting it down in a special way. Please tune in.
It's going to be fantastic. SWAT on CBS, and there he is. He's on the Jim Masters Show, and he's on your screen on television. Oba, thanks again. Be
All the
well,
best, my
and
friend.
go get a nice hot cup of coffee. You earned it. You're saying for your supper today.
You do the same. Thank you so
Do you,
much. Talk to you
do you,
soon.
before you go, do you do any concert performances, or are there any stage performances, singing?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do them from time to time. And it's funny that you would ask that because there's something in the works where I'm probably going to be doing, because I do a show. It's called Once in a Lifetime. And it's a tribute to the late, great Sammy Davis Jr. It's a show doing everything that Sammy would have done, the way he would have done it. But OBBA BABATUNDE is doing it in that style.
That is fantastic. Ever the performer, ever the entertainer, and a pleasure. Thanks again, my friend. I want to slip that in so people know that there are opportunities to keep abreast of that
Yes.
as well. We'll see you again, and thanks for all the time. You are a
Thank you, my
blast
friend.
to chat
I
with.
appreciate you. All
All
right.
right.
So
Right
long.
back at you. You be well. Take care now. OBBA Babatunde here on the show. What an epic conversation, and going over all the incredible experiences from Dreamgirls, and of course, winning the Daytime Emmy for his role on The Bold and the Beautiful. He was also on One Life to Live, All My Children, and so much more. He is a terrific actor, a great guy. He likes to mentor, he likes to teach. Of course, you've seen him on The Bold and the Beautiful for a long time. Great role, won the Emmy for that, and appearing on SWAT with Shamar Moore, where he is the dad, and it's a great friendship and relationship with Shamar, the two of them together that he shared. So many great moments, of course, in the movie Philadelphia, Miss Evers' Boys, The Temptations, and just the short list, folks, over 40 years of incredible entertainment. And he's a writer and a producer and a director. And it's just unbelievable. He's worked with so many people. He studied under many noted directors and choreographers too, like Jeffrey Holder, Bob Fosse, Michael Bennett, Hal Prince, Thelma Hill, Frank Hatchett, Harry Latang, Lewis Johnson, and it's incredible. It really is. And he's been in a lot of commercials too, folks. You've probably seen him in a lot of different TV commercials over the years too. His animation career includes the feature film The Wild Thornberrys as well, and Pup Star movies, Star Wars, Galactic Background, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, as I mentioned, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3, and on and on and on. That shot there you're looking at is from The Temptations. Incredible. Good stuff, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this episode of the Jim Masters Show, we thank you for being with us. And something very special we would love for you to do, and that's to give this episode a thumbs up like on the YouTube channel. You can click like. There's a little thumbs up icon. Click like, the notification bell icon, and click that so you get all the updates about all our episodes and so much more. Share this on your social media. We would love that. Share the link. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, to check out all the great episodes. You can binge watch hundreds and hundreds of shows and episodes with celebrity friends and special guests joining us as well. We're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and X at Jim Masters TV. If this was your first time watching the Jim Masters Show Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series, welcome to the JMS Lovity family. We appreciate all the great comments coming in as well in the chat room. So kind of you to do that. And don't forget to drop a comment below right underneath. OBBA has been a part of our lives on television, film, and stage in so many epic TV series and specials, films, stage productions, Broadway, you name it. He's a great singer as well. And we kept the porch light for him, and he came back. And we love to keep the porch light on for you as well. So come back and see us again. We love having you here. This is your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, be well, take care of one another, love one another, do the very same for yourself. And we shall see you right here in Lovity Hall on the next episode of the Jim Masters Show. Love putting these shows on for you, hosting, producing, and bringing us all together around the world. And I hope you'll enjoy more of our series. Be well, everybody. Take care. We'll see you again soon on the Jim Masters Show. Cheers.